City of Hungers, an excerpt from a chapter about Djevan the dragon. Quick note, dragons in this story world are shapeshifters who can take the form of humans. Hence, they interact with humans. Chapter 4, Djevan. Night fell on the city. Cold wrapped around me. I shivered and shoved my hands in my pockets, then hugged myself, then went for the pockets again. Cave, where are you? I whispered to no one. Just over the bridge, I headed north along the river on a broad, tree-lined cement walkway. There were streetlights a stone's throw to my left, and beyond that, the city towers. To my right, a metal fence and a steep drop-off into abyss where gentle water-lapping sounds whispered of hidden depths. Talking to myself was a small comfort. Just find Cave. Just find Cave. Get to that one bar. Find Cave. Find the dragons. My path ran between, following the shadows. Everywhere around me was dark, and darker between the streetlights, and darkest under the trees. In the shadows, I saw faces, creatures, ghastly specters of the night. Or was it my imagination? I so wished for a tree I could climb, but these were all too small. Rustles in the bushes to my left, whispers behind me, laughter from somewhere on the river. I spun round and round, darting eyes back and forth, feeling myself getting more and more tense with every new sound. What's your problem, Djevan? You can see in the dark. No one will sneak up on you. I knew nothing could hurt me, but still couldn't shake the feeling of being so small, so alone. My feet seemed to stumble forward on their own, clop clop on the chilly pavement. Eventually, I left the sidewalk, angling toward the city, venturing across the pitch black expanse of grass under trees. I wanted to be caught up in the big city. A distant part of me could see the beauty. Skyscrapers, lights, metal and glass and stone, dazzling, just simply amazing. My little dragon heart was smitten with the look of the city, and I was looking everywhere except where I was going. Hey! Oof! And that was the very tall, very fat human in a plaid shirt with a straw hat lingering in the middle of the sidewalk, just on the other side of the trees. He smelled terribly unhealthy and glared at me like it was my fault the ozone layer is dissolving. Sorry. Watch the fuck where you're going. Sorry, I'm new. You owe me a new coffee, man. What? I saw an empty coffee cup in his hands and how he now wore his brew down his shirt. New coffee, man, or I'm gonna fuck you up so hard you'll think it was Wednesday. Mercy, these people were animals. I turned and ran, much preferring angry mama grizzlies to fat men with spilled coffee. His curses bellowed through the street after me, rising to echo off the high-rise walls, each echo reaching back to collide with another, each collision an explosion, each explosion an impact on my ears, my brain, each impact pounding in a singular fact. You're not welcome. Not welcome. Not you. I turned down a dark alley and stopped to close my eyes. The cry of distant sirens layering over each other, approaching from 2, 3 different directions, circling, merging. A cat yowling, somewhere a lady laughing, somewhere else another lady jabbering in a fever pitch, and every other word being fuck. Even late at night, the streets were full, car engines revving, bigger trucks rumbling, bus brakes hissing. A few blocks away, metal squealing. How many blocks had I stumbled? Everything looked the same. More brick and stone and cement, more loud cars with bright lights, more human smell everywhere. I couldn't see the stars or the mountains or anything that could tell me where to go. I wanted to run, screaming. When I breathed, it was all chemicals and fumes and marijuana and dirty humans. Dirty, but warm and bloody. God, I was so hungry. The fire in my belly was the only thing distracting me from the rising panic. I jerked my head up. Someone in loose pants and a huge, baggy black sweater and a long, braided black hair was ambling toward me, saucer eyes unblinking, hands outstretched as if expecting alms or a hug. I had to get away. Backed up and out of the alley, only to be cornered by a shuffling fellow bent at the waist, with long, scraggly wisps of hair leaking out from under a dirty cap and 2 teeth sticking out of his cheeks. Before I could dodge him, he grabbed my arms, fingers clenching. Just a hit, man. One little hit. I tried to brush him off like I would a spider. He wouldn't let go. I wrenched and flailed and tried to break free, but had to strike his hands to make him let go. When I turned again, there was a whole group of men jaunting up the sidewalk, some on the walk, some on the street. They were all taller than me, dark skins, scowling faces. I didn't stay to see if they were going to attack me or not. I ran. I kept running. I had to get away. The whole city seemed to breathe violence. If I didn't wash myself, like Kava said, I was guessing the city streets themselves would open up, extend razor sharp teeth, and tear me from the universe. Or the opposite. I would lose control of my hunger and be terror among the people, devouring any who came near. Between me and the city, only one could survive. What seemed a beautiful jewel from across the river in daylight felt sinister, like a rat's maze. I couldn't think of anything but that I had to get away and had to find food. My feet wandered over a dozen or so blocks before I figured out how to look for street signs. Then Kave's instructions began to make sense. You head for White Claw Tavern on 5th and Ankeny. This is how the grid works. Now, with the direction, I felt energized. Just get to the bar, find Kave, find out if he's still alive. My throat tightened at the thought. If Kave had been killed, I was screwed. How was I supposed to find the rest of the dragons? Hunger flared in my gut, and I found myself on the heels of a nice smelling gentleman in a long coat and wide rimmed hat. He had a nice fragrance, and he was pudgy. There would be good flavor and plenty to go around. I jerked to a stop when he whirled around to sneer at me from under huge glasses. You kidding me? No, sorry. That was enough to break me out of the daydream. I turned and ran back into the shadow of a hedge, more afraid of what I had almost done than any amount of dark. The pudgy man moved on, and I popped out from behind the hedge. I continued to walk. To my supreme relief, Kave's bar was just where he said it would be. At the door was a set of large male humans with goatees and black shirts and surly faces. The one held out a fat hand. ID? ID, I mumbled. ID! I'm supposed to tell you I'm with Kave. He sent me, or he'll be meeting me here. Might be already here. The man sighed loudly out his nose and almost seemed to growl, but then he gave me a nod. When the other turned an inquisitive stare at me, the first one waved a hand at him. Then I got a nod from the other one. Thus, I was inducted into my first club. Quite peculiar, this human practice of music so loud to damage the ears while ingesting chemicals to impair the senses and good judgment, all as a context for making sexual overtures to females uninterested in reproducing. I reminded myself to point out the absurdities to Kave, although I immediately imagined him telling me to loosen up. I wondered aloud if dragons even belonged there. After a while of standing in the doorway, then scooting inside far enough to perch on the edge of the seat at the most perimeter table, watching humans mix and mingle, drink and dance, and all the while shifting from foot to foot in a corner by a window, I was thirsty. Dr. Gary would have been scandalized to see me in a dance club at all, and seeing me drinking alcohol might cause his head to explode. But someone like Jess would have probably snuck me out of the compound to visit a place like this. Thoughts of Jess pushed me toward the bar and an empty stool as far from other people as I could find. The surface of the bar was polished stone, and I could see my reflection. Low hanging lights gave off a warm glow, made extra bright by the cavernous darkness in the undefined ceilings. The whole place felt very inviting, cozy, almost as if the bright shelves laden with bottles of alcohol on the far wall was beckoning, promising me a warm hug. I sat myself on a stool. Kave said get some drinks and food, so I figured I'd best get started. One look at the drink menu showed me how little I knew of the world. The names, terms, and numbers may as well have been hieroglyphs. Oh well, might as well start at the top and work my way down. I tried a light beer, then a dark one, then one of those mojito things that Kave liked. Someone came by me with jello shots, and I liked jello, so I took two. Then I saw Manhattan iced tea, and iced tea reminded me of summer afternoons on the top side deck of the compound with Maggie, so I had one of those. You want some food with that? The bartender, with a mustache longer than his face, was wide and had an eyebrow perched high in concern. I paused and allowed myself to smell food. Ever since I started drinking, I hadn't really heard from the hungers, which I only just now noticed as thinking about them seemed to invite them in. Also, the air was full of the scent of burger. I nodded at the bartender so hard I bounced. Give me something with meat. The barkeeper nodded and glided off towards the back. A bulky, pale faced fellow was sitting beside me, and I didn't remember hearing or smelling him approach. Seemed like I hadn't heard from my other senses in a while either. Oh, wait, the human was looking at me. How long had that been going on? Yes? He had a classically square jaw, 3 days of scruff, hazel eyes, and the hair I could see poking out from under the cowboy hat was short. When I noticed him, his big mouth turned to an even bigger toothy grin. Man, you're drinking me under the table there. I peeked under the bar, which was solid wood, then scanned the restaurant tables. What is under the table? He laughed, but the kind of laugh that invited me to laugh with him, an obnoxious peal of pure buzzed delight. Nah, man, I'm just impressed someone your size can drink that much, that fast, and still be standing. This was confusing, and as I was sitting down, but it sounded like a compliment, so I took it. All the while, I was angrily wishing somewhere in homeschool there was a class on how to make friends with cowboys in bars and still look cool. The hungers roared in my head as the human shifted, and I smelled him, and suddenly wanted to sink my teeth into his skin. I turned away and bit my lip, wondering if I should leave the building now. I was saved by the arrival of my burger. My mouth watered. No sooner had the plate landed than I was double fisting it into my mouth, nearly groaning for the pleasure of meat. I wrapped my mouth around the burger again. It was mostly sauce and chemical, and it was burnt. No match for real flesh. But it was food. Good burger, eh? He was still watching me. Meh. Tastes dead. Well, I should hope so. No, like it has been dead too long. The best meat is always freshly dead. No chemicals, no sauces, just meat. The fellow was still grinning. You hunt much? I thought back to hunting with the men in the commune and to my first solo hunt 3 months ago when I ran barefoot through the forest to sink my teeth into the neck of a deer. A bit. You? Two human females walked by in skinny skirts. The fellow followed them with his eyes. Yeah, I hunt. Again, I was struck by the absurdities of human mating rituals. You would probably very much like to copulate. I see. Yes, very sensible. Devote a whole evening to pursuing an encounter that will require energy and emotional labor, all so you can wake up the next day and walk away saying, well, that was a good time. But all that energy and no child to show for it, and not even a promise of repeated contact and comfort. You could have spent the same evening illuminating yourself with documentaries. I woke up to myself and realized I was talking out loud. How long had I been talking? The human sat ramrod straight, eyes wide, mouth fallen. I covered my mouth with two hands. I am so sorry. The human shrugged, turned back to the bar. Don't be, man. You're right on some level. It is not my place. The fellow looked back at me. A man's got to speak his mind. There's always a place for that. I swallowed hard. It hurt. I took the last of my iced tea and felt better. I'm Preston. Ah, he was initiating a human ritual I knew. I'm Djevan. Nice to meet you. I stuck up my hand and he took it. You too. A wave of dizzy washed over me, a sinking whirlpool being churned in my gut, and suddenly every sound had turned to a perimeter alert klaxon. What? I stood up and the room started to swirl. Javen, you okay? Preston's voice echoed from far away as his face distorted. Next thing I knew, I was heaving and vomiting again and again into a toilet. Strong hands on my neck and shoulder, and a deep voice murmuring, You got this. It's okay. Just let it out. Let what out? Oh, I had never before expelled my insides in this manner and hated it very much. Preston leaned closer over my head. How you doing? Wretched. He erupted in laughter. I straightened and glared at him. He waved me down. I'm sorry. It's not funny that you're puking. It's just wretched. Wow, you are clever, dude. Thanks, dude. I leaned over the toilet and vomited one last time. Preston rented fresh air. I let him lead me through the noisy club. The music that Cave said was smooth was so abrasive in my head. I wondered where the other dragons were anyway. Hopefully, none of them had witnessed my disgraceful exit. I wondered if I was breaking a dragon rule by allowing myself to be led away by a goat. But then Preston was pushing me through an open door, and it was too late. Fresh air cleared my head. I leaned up against a lamppost and sucked in deep lungfuls of cool evening air. Preston waited quietly nearby. His eyes went on a rotation from me to the tree across the street to the woman down the block and back. He smelled relaxed, alert, comfortable. I wish I could feel comfortable. Do you like yourself? He looked up at me a while, then up at the sky as he pondered. After a while, he shrugged. Some parts, I guess. You? I hung my head. Most days I don't even know myself. He spit in the street. I know that feeling too. I smelled them again, and this time I felt the hungers. Not too many people around. I could get a bite out of his leg, or maybe just rip off an arm. I didn't need his whole body all at once, and besides, he'd been very nice to me. Shut up, Djevan. You're not a monster. I'm just so hungry. You know, me too. And the food here is terrible. That burger is most likely the real reason you puked. I woke up to myself and realized I'd said more words aloud that left me feeling oddly naked. Also, I was still very, so very hungry. Preston tapped my shoulder. Let's go find some food. What do you like? Chuckles. Good man. I know just the place. Just the place was a medium sized delivery truck that was converted into a kitchen. Preston at a food cart said it was a gold mine for being open this late, and this one had half a lamb spinning on a spit. I caught the scent and started to drool. Preston shook his head as he studied the menu. Can't believe you've never seen a food cart. Where'd you say you were from? I grew up on a commune in the backwoods of Kentucky. Right on. That like a cult or something? Well, when I wanted to leave, they tried to kill me. Shit, bro. Glad you made it out. Me too. Can I eat the lamb now? He bought me a huge portion of meat and sauce wrapped in warm, soft bread, and the vendor called it shawarma. Still tasted dead, but took the edge right off. My body stopped trembling and my head cleared. I turned to Preston, seated on the curb next to me, who was halfway through a shawarma of his own. Thank you. He grinned with a mouthful of meat. No problem, dude. Why did you help me? He shrugged. I don't know. I mean, why not? Most humans I've known would as soon exploit you as help you. And you just help a kid vomit in the bathroom and buy him dinner because it's fun? Preston hung his head a while. I wondered if he was offended, and slowly I scooted half an inch away. When he spoke, his voice was low. I want to see myself as someone good. I nodded. I know that feeling too. He clapped a hand on my shoulder. We resumed our devouring. A while later, in between licking meat sauce off my fingers, I asked, Have you lived here long? Preston shook his head. I don't actually live here, just visit a lot for work and sometimes company. Ah, is that fun? He shrugged. Sorta. Gets lonely too. So you really just up and left your whole life and crossed the country? I thought back to what I had told him and told him his summary seemed accurate. What's that like? He asked. You excited or just scared shitless all the time? I rubbed a hand over my head. Some of both. I outgrew the place I was living. Had to find a different home. He made a fist and punched my arm. But in contrast to Tobel, his punch was gentle and completely friendly. His words continued the friendliness. Man, I wish I could do that. Just up and go, disappear, start over. Why don't you? Too many chains holding me down. I sneaked a peek at his wrists and ankles and recognized he was speaking in metaphor again. At last, one that I knew. I did the polite thing and asked him about them. What sorts of chains? He was silent a while, then laughed. Would you believe I just got a girl pregnant? See? I wanted to jump up, shout, and jab my finger at the bar. Inefficient, unplanned pregnancies are why clubbing is a bad idea. But he was giving off human signals that I could recognize. Slouched back, downcast eyes, soft voice. He was having a serious moment. Then I realized what he was saying. Wait, you were going to be a father? And you want to run away? He nodded. My girl lives here. I'm headed home tonight. I turned squarely to face him. And you'll come back, right? For her? For your child? He shrugged, his eyes unfocused in the direction of something atop a building across the street. I ain't cut out to be a father, dude. I'd probably accidentally kill the kid. My mind took me to some of the people I'd known early in life, who had later disappeared. The man in charge of me when I was little, a man named Luke. He was a chubby human who always smelled the beans. Every time I saw him, he smiled and spoke with a gentle voice. I knew he often argued with the other humans about getting me more food and more space and being more careful with how they did experiments on me. The whole compound became more wild after he disappeared. I leaned over to Preston. To leave your primary offspring unguarded and unguided seems impractical. He flicked his eyes at me. There was subtext burning in his retinas, and I could smell the spike in emotions, but all he said was, You think? I nodded. poor use of resources. You went through all the trouble of courting the mother and conceiving. He broke in with laughter at my mention of trouble. You should be able to reap the benefit of a descendant to carry on your name and care for you in old age. His voice was tight and his eyebrows furrowed at me. That how they do it in Kentucky? That's how I would do it. I thought back to the dragons and what Tobal had said. Live for the herd. What's good for all is good for one. He ripped off another big mouthful of shawarma. A lot of chewing later, he belched and muttered, Kentucky sounds like a mighty fine place. I laid a hand on my stomach. Finally, I felt an internal balance coming back, just a little. With a sigh, I heaved myself up to my feet. I should probably get back to my friends. Right on, you know the way back? Dragons are excellent navigators. Whoops, more words I probably should have censored. Preston just laughed again. I bet they do. You have a great night, Javen. You too. Perhaps I can return your kindness one day. He held open a hand and shrugged. I'm all about the kindness, man. Thank you for listening to this rough reading. I will be back with more sometime soon. Thank you for listening.